Well, hello and welcome back to part 2 of our documented information segment. This is a big topic. There's a lot to digest, and so what we're going to do is break this down into a little more bite-sized segments, just to kind of help wrap our heads around it. So last week,
So this is part one of the second thing, which will be part 2.
part 1 of 2 of part 3.
I just show up
parts.
and do what they tell me.
So last week we left on somewhat of a cliffhanger. We laid the groundwork for why they have made the changes that they've made related to the documented information. And I believe you said that this time around they have done something, quote, drastic.
Well, bordering on it bizarre, I would actually say. And,
Really?
And the Clip Notes version really is ISO basically doesn't require you to document anything.
Nothing.
Well, nearly nothing. But in the old standard required that an organization, much like the new standard, says you create the documentation you feel you need to be able to manage effectively. And it gave you that caveat. Again, if you watch the old episode, you'll understand the reasoning why they got to that point. But the old standard was they were saying at least 6 core procedures had to be documented, and then it was up to you what you documented after that. And you all remember what those are: control of documents, control of records, internal audits, corrective action, preventive action. What am I missing? I guess that's it. So, but in ISO 15, it doesn't require any of those procedures. In fact, it doesn't even call them procedures, which we'll talk about that in a little bit. So,
What about AS9100?
Well, they add a grand total of 1 requirement procedure. So.
Yeah, there's only one that even says that you have to have any kind of documented information. That's
Right.
control of non-conforming product.
Yeah.
So how's this going to look? I mean, how do you think this is going to play out?
Well, obviously, at the very least, it's going to raise some eyebrows, like mine, but no sane person is going to feel like, okay, we don't have to document anything. What this does mean is that an organization is going to have to decide what makes business sense to document how the system is going to be captured.
How do you think that will be audited?
Well, that's kind of precisely the issue. If an organization chooses to really minimize their documentation, then you're going to need to be able to prove to the auditor, your customers, or the accreditation body that the documentation you have is really sufficient to be effective. And I suspect this is going to have some consequences the authors were not expecting, or probably didn't really think through.
So we basically have the old standards. They went overboard with documentation requirements, and
Right.
the huge honking binders we talked about from last week's episode.
Now getting skinnier binders.
Now we have, it's like the rubber band effect. Now there's no requirements, almost no requirements.
Right. So now we get to, so you, as an organization, I don't think this is probably going to really affect how much documentation is going to be really required, but it's up to you to make that decision. But now we get to the really silly, stupid, strange, brilliant, bizarre, you pick one, of what they did with this documented system.
It is interesting and confusing to see how they've changed, and one could argue muddled, the whole concept of documentation. So we'll see that as we start unpacking some of the key clauses, which is actually going to be in the next episode. But for now, we're actually going to answer a question or two from you guys that have come in. We always encourage you to submit us your feedback, submit any questions that you have, and
not that we know the answers, but we.
So yeah, in just a moment, we're going to do that.
Learn all about AS9100 Rev D with our new online course. This is the best resource to rapidly get you caught up on what's changed and what's new. Our course guides you through each part of the standard and teaches you how to implement it within your own organization. Each section is broken into bite-sized pieces, allowing you to work through the standard at your own pace. You can access the course as many times as you want, making this the #1 resource for when you need a quick refresh on a specific topic. Buy it today and get the guidance you need to achieve your Rev D certification.
So we love hearing from you guys. We love getting your questions and interacting with you. One of the very common questions that we have gotten is rescheduling surveillance audits, depending on where it falls compared to the drop dead date of June 15th, 2017. So the question is, can they reschedule their surveillance audits? If the surveillance audit is going to fall close to that date, can they potentially bump it up and say, do it in May and then kind of give themselves another year to have to get to Rev D?
Or 6 months if they're on 6 months. Yeah.
6 months. Or can they even postpone it a little bit and give themselves a little breathing room?
The short answer to that is that's not going to work. That's how the registrars got themselves in deep water already by doing that, and then they end up not being able to meet the needs. So this time they're going to hold that date. So if your audit is scheduled for June 16th, I'm sorry for you, but you're going to be going to Rev D. So in the past, they were, people trying to move it up, and just like you say, but they're drawing a line on this. Now, whether they hold that line, I don't know, but we've asked registrars this very question because we knew this question was coming in. And it's the old adage, it's like, this is not a revision to the standard that you're going to like just whip out a week before the audit. You know? And it's like, we all know when taxes are due. When are they due?
April 15th.
When do most people start on them?
April 12th.
Well, in my case, the 14th. No, this is not the kind of thing where you can start in June. Even if your surveillance is in the first quarter of, I'm glad you're watching these videos. You need to be taking the course to get yourself lined up so that you're ready to go for this. So, because they're not going to be able to, the registrars are not, they're not sure they're going to have the resources to be able to do them all as they need to. Yeah. Let alone by jockeying dates around. So the answer to that is, unfortunately, they're probably not going to change for you.
So get on it early.
Yes.
Get going with it. So that'll wrap up for today. Next week we will pick up with part 3, and we will get into those key clauses that show you exactly what.
Okay, is this part 3 of part 2, or is
I can bring them an abacus next time and keep track. So thank you for tuning in, and we will catch you next week.
Yep.